it's hard to imagine a more appropriate person to speak to this group of graduates today than Dr. Laurie Schreiner.
Well, I bring you greetings, President Summerlin and members of the Board of Trustees and distinguished faculty, staff, and administrators, families, and of course, most importantly, the class of 2014. And there's a couple things I need to be very clear about today, and President Summerlin alluded to one of them, that I'm not related to the captain, although probably the most common question I've been asked is that really your name? Yes, but no relation, although I must say when I walked in and saw my name on the wall, you know, it kind of gives you a warm feeling in your heart. But the main thing I want you to be clear about, that I'm clear about, is I know what my task is today. Be inspirational, be meaningful, and be done. Now, I've been a faculty member for 30 years, as Tim said, and I just want to be clear about this as well, that I did start when I was 10, okay, just so we know that. And I was counting up how many graduation ceremonies I've attended, and it's almost 100 because we have 6 a year at my university in Southern California, outside in the scorching heat. So I do know what faculty do during graduation ceremonies, but I enjoy graduation because of the success it represents. But every now and then my mind wanders a little bit as we see thousands of students cross the stage. And so one summer afternoon, as I watched my students cross the stage, I was struck by how different they were. Because there was Angela, eager to start her job at the local domestic violence shelter where she had first done her service learning and later her internship. And she was singing joyfully in the choir during the ceremony. And then there was Roberto, exuberantly crossing the stage, who'd been part of my learning community and had come alive working with kids in inner city Philly and was now headed into the Teach for America program. And in contrast, I also saw Carla, who had been one of my advisees. She began college unsure of herself and her abilities, but was graduating just as timid and unsure with no definite plans for the future. And then there was Danny, just as cocky and overconfident as when he had started, and just as convinced as ever that his plan to play in the NBA was going to come to fruition someday, but he had no idea what he was going to do in the meantime. And so I was intrigued because I wondered what had made the difference between these young people. Angela and Carla had both begun college at a disadvantage. Both of them had been unsure of themselves and the gifts they had to offer. Roberto and Danny had both been athletes, a little too sure of themselves when they first started. So how had two of them created such meaningful lives for themselves, and yet the other two, who were similar in so many ways when they started, turned out differently? Well, my question that day led me to years of research on what helps students get the most out of their college experiences, a term that I have chosen to call thriving because it can be contrasted with surviving. Because you see, it's just not enough for me that students simply graduate, that they cross the stage and have a diploma to hang on the wall. I want more for the next generation in this country. I want them to thrive. College graduates should not only have great jobs, they should have great lives. They ought to be able to change the world. After all, Nelson Mandela once reminded us that education is the most powerful weapon which you can use to change the world. And I firmly believe that and have committed my life to it. So as I was thinking about the differences in these students that I saw on that graduation day, I realized it was all about how much they had changed or not. And the song "Changed for Good" from the musical Wicked came to my mind. Now, since you do know strengths themes, my top one's ideation. That kind of tells you where that comes from. But so every now and then these ideas come out of the blue, but I try to put them to good use, and that thinking led me to research that has now involved over 30,000 college students across the US and Canada and Australia. So what I want to talk to you about today is how your experience at Schreiner University has changed you for good, and what that means for your future. And I'd like to share with you 3 pieces of advice that I've gleaned from the thousands of thriving students who've graduated. Now, the lyrics to this song say, "Because I knew you, I have been changed for good." And often when change happens in college, the transformation most often happens because of the relationships we form in the context of the campus community. And the word transform is like metamorphosis, so the caterpillar that becomes the butterfly. The butterfly has lived into its full potential and now sees an entirely different perspective on the world from the air than it could see when it was limited to the earth as a caterpillar. And in our research, we found that that same perspective was the distinguishing feature of the students who had made the most of their college years and went on to thrive in life. They saw the world differently. They still had challenges, but they saw negative events as temporary setbacks. And through it all, they believed that with effort, things would eventually work out. We also found that this perspective in our students was often grounded in their faith in a creator who loved them, and this led them to keep going when times got tough. And this perspective that helps students thrive in college, I think, can also help you thrive in life. And so the advice given from these thriving graduates is to grow up. Not said in a disparaging way, but in a way meant to encourage you to keep growing. People who see setbacks in life as growth opportunities are not only more successful in life, they enjoy life a lot more. People who know their own growing edge and cut others a break as they are growing are better employees, they're better parents, and they're better partners. And I'm reminded of a story that my mom told me years ago about what to do when I found myself in hot water, as I often did, and I was pretty upset one day, and she said, "All right, I'm going to show you this." And she took me into the kitchen. She put 2 pans of water to boil on the stove. And in one pan, she put some fresh carrots. And in the other pan, she put some ground coffee beans. She let them boil for a while and then pulled out the carrots and put them on a plate, poured me a cup of coffee from the other pan, and said, "Which do you want to be? Are you going to be like this hard carrot that wilted at the first sign of hot water when things got tough? Or are you going to be like the ground coffee beans that flavored the water they found themselves in?" And she challenged me that day to be like those coffee beans, that when pain and hardship happened, as it always will in life, the coffee beans were actually at their very best, changing, flavoring the water around them. And that's what will serve you well in the future, that ability to affect the environment around you, to allow it to bring out your best. So grow up and smell the coffee. The second piece of advice from our thriving college graduates is how important it is to not only grow up, but also to show up. Graduates who had been changed the most by their college experience were those who had been highly engaged in the learning process. They'd made connections between what they were learning in class and what interested them about the world. And for Angela, it was this connection between her social work classes and her service learning experience at the domestic violence shelter. For Roberto, engagement happened because he was curious about how in the world justice happens in urban neighborhoods that were plagued by such deep poverty. They had found meaning in their learning. They had not just memorized definitions for a test. And this engaged learning is also a lifelong skill of showing up. It's that ability to fully invest yourself in what you are called to do, to put in the effort and energy it takes to do a job well and to keep trying even when things don't work out the first time. The most successful people in life, and again, among the happiest people in life, are those who are deeply engaged in the world around them and have a clear sense of meaning and purpose in their work. They strive to be the best possible version of themselves every single day. And Martin Luther King Jr. once described this as living every day to your highest and best self. And I think the way you do that is by finding that place where, in the words of theologian Frederick Buechner, your deep gladness and the world's deep hunger meet. That's your calling. That's the place that will bring out your best self, that place where your strengths and gifts and passions intersect with a very real need in the world. A college education helps you become aware both of your deep gladness and the deep needs of the world. The world needs your vision, your passion, your energy, your curiosity, your strengths as a gift to the world. Show up every day ready to see what new adventures await. And the final piece of advice from thriving students is to step up. Angela and Roberto connected in healthy ways with other people, and they made a difference in the lives of those around them. So when we say that college changes you for good, it means not only is that change likely to be pretty permanent, but it is also a change in order to do good in the world. You are hopefully changed for good by graduating from Schreiner University. Now, we expect you to step up, to make meaningful commitments to other people, to speak for those who have no voice, to empower those who have no status, to make life better for those the world has forgotten. Now, changing the world is a tall order, but I think an image from Mother Teresa might help here. She once said, "I alone cannot change the world, but I can cast a stone across the waters to create many ripples." Think about whether your life has had a ripple effect so far. You have had the amazing privilege of a first-class education at a liberal arts university where people have cared deeply about you and the person you become. What are you going to do with this privilege you've been given? Will you pick it up and use it like a small, smooth stone that you skim across the water to create ripple effects that change the world? Or will you pick it up and put it in your pocket to save it as a memento of some good times that you want to remember forever? You see, the ripple effect can only happen when you cast your stone into the water. So grow up, show up, then step up and skim that stone across the pond. We can't wait to see the ripple effects of the class of 2014. May God bless you.